According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 40% of the population suffers from glossophobia, otherwise known as the fear of public speaking. I myself was part of that 40%, and I wanted to make this video to share the 5 things that I did to improve my public speaking skills. I went from dreading having to speak in front of a group to now feeling a lot more confident. I still have quite a bit of work to do, but the 5 things that I'll share with you today help me tremendously. So if you're interested in learning more, stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome. My name is Colleen, if you're new to my channel. I am a career strategist and leadership coach based outside of beautiful Boulder, Colorado. I work one-on-one with individuals to help them transform the way they live, lead, and work. So as I mentioned in my intro, a large percentage of people suffer from a fear of public speaking. I know for myself, just the thought of having to use my voice to have to communicate in a group was very daunting. The catalyst for wanting to improve my public speaking skills happened a number of years ago during a performance review. My manager at the time said, "Colleen, you do fine one-on-one communicating. However, you have work to do when you speak in front of a group." And, once I disentangled my emotional reaction, I felt a little bit defensive. I think that could be normal. Took a step back. I was objective, and I realized that my manager was right. I was not a confident or competent public speaker. What would happen is I went through this disassociating where I found my body was kind of floating above. I struggled to find my words. I didn't know what I was saying at some time. I would start sweating. My heart would be racing. My voice would be really high. I mean, it was just a disaster. I would just be thinking, can I just get this situation over with? I do not want the spotlight on me. This is so uncomfortable. So unfortunately, because I didn't readily raise my hand, because I didn't speak up, because I didn't move outside my comfort zone, which we'll talk about, it impacted my career trajectory. I was not moving forward in my career at the pace that I wanted. So I thought, I need to take action. I need to devise a plan to become a better public speaker. So the 5 things that I did, and I'll go into more detail for each. Number 1, I regulated my nervous system. Number 2, I stretched outside of my comfort zone and I practiced. Number 3, I studied exceptional public speakers. Number 4, I read books on becoming a better communicator. And number 5, I assessed myself and I had others assess me. So let's start with number 1. This is fairly uncommon, and to be honest, I hadn't heard about the importance of regulating your nervous system in relation to public speaking. And I think it can often be a huge factor of why people have such a stress response and a lot of fear and trepidation when they have to put themselves out there, so to speak. I'll provide a little more context here. So I've worked with a number of coaching clients who have said, growing up, my voice didn't matter. My parents were overwhelmed. They were juggling jobs. They had multiple kids, and I just was meant to be seen, but not necessarily heard. It's not that the parents were neglectful, but they just had a lot going on themselves. Or I've had coaching clients say, my parents were critical. They told me that I wasn't very smart, or I wouldn't amount to anything. Or if I didn't pursue, this certain field, then I would be a failure. All of these things can add up to this belief that we don't matter. And then you think about, well, then our voice doesn't matter. Like, who would care what we'd have to say? So for myself personally, I had a few different adverse childhood experiences. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail and complete a Freudian analysis. However, what I will say is, there was some chaos in my home. I also was pretty severely bullied in middle school. And as a result, I wanted to hide. I literally hid in my closet the last day of 8th grade because I was terrified of being bullied and being beat up. And so I didn't realize going through my life that I had this subconscious belief that it's safer to just hide, because if I was visible, if I used my voice, there would be kind of dire circumstances. And so it really helped me address kind of this stress that I was holding in my body by working with a somatic experiencing therapist. I met with her weekly, we did table work, and she helped me essentially befriend my nervous system. So when I was in situations that evoked a stress response, public speaking, for example, I was able to breathe because historically I had held my breath. I was able to really be in my body. I felt more grounded. I kind of shifted my belief system and realized that, yes, my voice does matter. I do have something to say. And so I encourage you, if you're wondering why you have so much fear around public speaking, think back to any experiences that could have impacted you not wanting to be visible. Think about any criticism and recommend working with experienced, therapist or a coach to help you kind of build up that confidence, help you address, for me, a dysregulated nervous system, which could be the case for many others who had adverse childhood experiences. So the second thing that I did was I moved outside of my comfort zone. So I was lucky to work at a company that allowed employees to raise their hands and sign up to lead trainings for employees across the organization. And so I thought, I'm not going to improve my public speaking skills simply by sitting on my couch thinking, shoot, well, I have to figure out how to become a better public speaker. I had to put myself out there. I had to practice because I was not going to see any change. So every week or so, I would lead a different training, and it was very uncomfortable. I didn't do well initially. And eventually, however, I found that I became more confident. And then I was asked to speak at employee all hands for the organization that I was in, or a couple hundred people. And it was so uncomfortable, and it just stretched me. I would prepare like no one's business. Then I started receiving feedback. Well, Colleen, you're an engaging speaker. You are a strong public speaker. And I thought, this can't be real. People must be just trying to be nice. And they were really being genuine. So I think it helped to receive kind of positive affirmations and know that I started off being a terrible public speaker, and incrementally I was making progress. It wasn't overnight, but again, it was me just putting myself out there, leading a training, giving a presentation, raising my hand. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance to practice. You can join Toastmasters. You can join different meetups that help support people in improving their public speaking skills. You could even enlist, a group of friends that you really respect and trust, and you could practice in front of them and have them give you feedback. So the third thing that I did was study exceptional public speakers. And I thought to myself, What do I admire in certain speakers? Well, sense of humor, this authenticity, this raw and realness, this connection of head and heart, this empathy. And I devised a list of people, and I studied them. Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, Brene Brown, Dr. Vivek Murthy, the current US Surgeon General. And all of these individuals were actually quite different, but there were elements that I really admired in them. And I knew that, I would never be a Barack Obama, different personality styles, but I realized I love how cool, calm, and collected he is. And with Michelle Obama, I love how she just owns who she is and she's not afraid to express her femininity. With Brene Brown, I mean, she is a straight talking, cowboy boot wearing, swearing, shame researcher, and she is unapologetically herself. With Dr. Vivek Murthy, he is in high-level government role and he's been very vulnerable, giving interviews about the loneliness epidemic, talking about his own experience with loneliness. And so I encourage you to think about, what is it about certain people? What can I learn from them without trying to be them exactly? Because I think we all have our own unique personality. We all have our own signature voice, and it's important for us to express that in our own way. The fourth thing that I did was I read books, and I highly recommend Joel Schwartzberg. He wrote a book, Get to the Point, which is hilarious. He challenges his readers to consider, what is your point? I don't know if you've ever been with someone who goes on and on and on. You're like, what the hell? What is their point? I don't need to know all these extraneous details. Maybe you're guilty of going on and on and on. And so I love Joel's book. I'll include a link because it's short and sweet. Brevity is the soul of what he is what? Anytime you're opening your mouth, figure out what is the point that I want to make with courage and conviction. And then next, what I did is I assessed myself, and I also had others assess me. And so by that, I mean, anytime I engage in public speaking, I would ask myself a series of questions. Did I understand what my audience needed? Was I in tune with my audience? Because ultimately, when you're presenting, it's not about you. It's about, are you educating your audience? Are you trying to influence your audience? Are you trying to move your audience? Are you trying to persuade your audience? And so if you can shift your mindset and think, oh, yeah, I may feel the spotlight is on me, but actually it's about the audience. It makes a tremendous difference in being less anxious and feeling like there's all this pressure on you. Also ask yourself, did my ego dominate, which is related to the audience factor. When you make it all about you, you likely won't be that effective as a public speaker. And I think it's important to practice this self-awareness, this situational awareness. Do you understand how you're coming across? Do you read the room well? And then, as I mentioned, it's imperative to also receive feedback. So even though I mentioned earlier I did receive positive feedback, I also have received constructive feedback. I'm just so ingratiated for that feedback. And so find people you really trust, you admire, respect, they are strong public speakers, and just ask them, how did I do? What are some areas of improvement? What can I do differently? So I want to end by saying improving any area of your life is a journey. I shared these 5 things that I did to improve my public speaking skills, and I'm still on the journey. And I embraced this action plan over the course of a number of years. And I think it's just so important to be diligent, to not give up, to embrace a growth mindset and celebrate, as I mentioned, these incremental improvements. So you give a speech and maybe you're not sweating as profusely as you used to, or you give a speech and you find that your voice isn't as high, whatever it may be. And I want you to know, finally, and this is so important, that your voice matters. I think it's such a travesty if people have this song inside of them that goes unsung when they die. So I'm challenging you, I'm encouraging you to use your voice because you have your own signature voice. Thanks so much. Stay tuned for the next video.